And welcome to the Writer's Life, a place where you get the sight, sound, smells, taste of my particular writer's life. Where do you get the truth about the writer's life? My truth, anyway. Always ride a Jeep. So subscribe if you haven't already. Punch the like button. Tap the bell for notifications, so you don't miss out on one single exciting video. How exciting they are. What a beautiful, I guess, call it Indian summer day. Weather's been awesome. Back outside the studio in my terrace office. Still too cold in the mornings to write, but outside. But in the afternoons, very pleasant. We got 3 more days of this, then temperatures plummet. Already skiing in Vermont on the peaks, like Killington, Jay Peak, Stowe. They all have snow, at least for periods of time. Certain periods of time they have snow. Anyway, a lot of it's powder. I don't like skiing powder. I like that hard, tight as a cat's ass kind of surface. That's what I like, which is typical of Northeast skiing. Everybody loves the powder. Like, you wouldn't believe how much powder there was. Like, give me the really, almost like ice. Of course, you gotta have really sharp edges for that. Anyway, this isn't a skiing channel. So these 2 dudes just walked past, like they were out for a stroll. They're probably about my age, maybe a little younger. Kind of like trying to look like they're casually dressed, wearing Ray-Ban aviators. Both of them, like, kind of looking at me, like, I'm like, you're either working for the state or you're working for the feds. Come on, are you kidding? These guys, I write about this shit, right? Who are they kidding? It's amazing. It's amazing the lists you can be on these days. And I'm not saying I'm being followed by anybody for any particular reason, but you never know. You just never know. In this day and age, lawfare abounds. Anyway, what did I want to talk about? Oh, check out Lee Cole, writer Lee Cole's Substack. Lee Cole, just like you say it, Leecole. Check out his Substack today. It's just a basic article about, like, why be a writer as opposed to something else. In particular, a freelance writer and a fiction writer. And he discusses the difference between commercial writing as opposed to fiction writing. The former being you get paid for your time, but that's it. That includes journalism, such as it exists anymore. I would not, unless I have a big bank account, I probably wouldn't venture too much into investigative journalism. That's say a story that takes 6 or 10 months or a year to write, because you're going to be broke, otherwise. But because you're not going to get paid until it's done, and hopefully even then you don't know if you're going to get paid. But I digress. And the latter being the fiction, it's an asset. In other words, it might not make you a ton of money right away, but it's always going to be making you money for years and years and years, 70 years after your death. Or is it your death plus? Yeah, your death plus 70 years, I think. Yes. So your children, their children, and their children, so long as you keep renewing the copyright, will benefit from that. It's what I've been espousing for a long time, right? I still get assignments, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Most of the assignments I get, probably like Lee, I can write with my left hand while I'm, eating lunch with my right. It's easy, for the most part. Fiction's different. To be honest, even though the fiction's an asset, like, You know, like I keep saying, it's like building, you know, a small portion of a building in Manhattan or something like that. It's just fun. It's just a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, I told you I was going to talk about this on Friday, I think, and that is writing off the rails. Off the rails. For instance, I can't think of what book it was. What the hell book was it? What was the one I did like 3 years ago? It takes place in Lake Placid. The daughter gets lost. Jesus Christ, I can't even remember the name of my own books. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyway, one publisher was looking at it and was loving it, and he's like, what the fuck? You went off the rails. I'm like, what do you mean I went off the rails? He's like, well, you know, this scene with the helicopter, you know, like, that wouldn't happen, and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, well, that's the way I wanted to write it. You gave me an opportunity to change it, and I said, no, it was fun for me, and I think it's cool. And so I kept it, and another publisher published it. So I think now I've got the rights back. I think Polis published it, or did Ocean View, one or the other. What's the difference? Ocean View published it. I got the rights back. But the point is, I wrote the book I wanted to write, and I got, you know, kind of a decent advance for it or whatever. But now I got it back, and it's under Bear Media, and that's where it will stay, earning me steady money. But should you make a point of going off the rails with your stories? You know, writing something that is like completely unrealistic, or over the top violent, or over the top dramatic, over the top maudlin, over the top whatever. Whereas you might actually run the risk of pulling the reader out of the story. It depends. I think in a novel, there's less opportunity for that. Readers are always looking for what they call verisimilitude. There's a SAT word for you, verisimilitude. Look it up. It's really just another word for truth. And if your writing contains what they perceive as truth, they're going to trust you as an author, even if it's fiction. For instance, when Hemingway wrote A Farewell to Arms, he had a huge scene about the retreat, the Italian retreat at Corporeto, way up north in Italy, above Trieste, probably, something like that. Correct me, you know, all you historians out there, correct me, feel free to. But anyway, it was so believable and possessed such verisimilitude, there's that word again, that readers were convinced that Hemingway had been at that retreat, that he participated in it, because he was driving ambulances for the Italians at the time, before he actually got, you know, his leg almost blown off, and they were just convinced of it, but he didn't. He read about it in several history books, and he had such talent that he was able to recreate it in such a way, almost like a painter, that people bought it. They were like, wow, he must have really been there. You know, he must have really witnessed it. He must have been a part of it, because he writes about it with such emotion and whatever. But no, he wasn't there. He just was able to write about it. And so that's what people sometimes will look for in their fiction. Even if it's genre fiction, pulp fiction, they'll look for that truth, that element of truth. But here's where you can get away with going off the rails a little bit more. And that's with short stories, or long short stories. Say like I'm finishing now, Code Blue Moonlight. It's about 14,000 words right now, or about 70 pages, something like that. And I'm just about done with it. I have like another chapter or two to write, and that's it. And takes place mostly in a hospital. And there are certain things that happen in this story that are just a blast that would never happen in real life. Would just never be allowed. But, you know, the chapters are short, they're concise. They're like potato chips. Hey, how are you? They're like potato chips, you know. They're just, that's how to write a short story. Just, you know, like, just keep feeding people potato chips, and they just want to, they want to read. People really want to read a short story in one sitting, especially if it's a long short story. You know, they don't want to have to break it up. And so I write stuff, I add stuff that I would love to read. Simple as that. And a lot of that stuff ends up being off the rails. And it's just so much fun. You know, am I serving myself more than my master in this case? Yeah, I guess so. But I like to believe that if I'm having a lot of fun, you'll have a lot of fun. It's kind of like sex that way, right? If I'm having a lot of fun, you probably will have a lot of fun. If you're a hot lady. Just want to make that super clear. I hope my mother's not watching this. I'll get yelled at again. Anyway, but anyway, you get where I'm going with this. You got to balance it. Some things, you know. I mean, if you're gonna throw in a Deus Ex Machina at the end, you know, just somebody just disappears by, you know, throwing himself through a wall, and that's how it ends. You know, you could get away with that shit in the '60s. With Sam Shepard plays, you know, like experimental fiction, Richard Brodigan, stuff like that, but not anymore. Or you could play it safe. Like, the reason I don't read a lot of the big Barnes and Noble front table books is because the authors play it so safe. You know, the editors will only let them get away with, you know, it's got to be their brand of just, to me, ho-hum fiction. I'm not going to name any names, but you know what I'm talking about. It just bores me to death. You know, I like edgy stuff, you know, stuff that takes me away, that makes me escape. That's why when I'm like pushing some books in my you know, during flash sales or something like that with my subscriber list, I'll say, you know, nab this and escape. That's what it's all about. Escape. You know, if you can't escape while reading a book, there's something wrong. Something very wrong. Do you escape when you look at an Instagram video? No. Do you escape when you look at a TikTok video? No. But do you escape when you read a short story? Absolutely. You should be just transported to somewhere else entirely. And if something crazy happens that you didn't expect, enjoy the freaking ride. It's like turbulence on an airplane. What do I do when it's turbulent? I close my eyes and sit back and enjoy the ride. Not because I'm not afraid of it, or, you know, I'm not like, there's not like a little bit of me that thinks like, well, what if this goes bad and the plane goes down? Well, fuck it if the plane goes down. There's nothing you can do about it anyway. So sit back and enjoy the ride. So authors, don't be afraid to go off the rails. Sometimes. All right, you guys, I'll try to catch you Wednesday. I'm gonna try to have Troy on. I better email him, huh? And we'll talk about the state of the writing industry in this last quarter of 2024. And ciao, ciao.